Uh, Namaskara to all the participants here. So, first of all, let me basically go about expressing my gratitude and thanks to the Malur First Grade College for inviting me to be on this platform and share some thoughts on the topic, what has been the FDP program on COVID-19 and its challenges and opportunities for Indian business. Uh, uh, my most uh, uh, I also wish to acknowledge the principal of the Malur College, who's the program head, all the committee members, right, and the advisory bodies. And before I start my lecture, I would also like to express my wishes to the good work that Professor Manjunath is basically carrying on, and the guest of honor, my namaskara to you also. So right, so we would I have we will get into the topic. So before I get into the topic, let me put on the share the screen. And just a minute. I just get my files on the PPT file. Just give me a minute. Yeah. All right. Sorry for this thing. There's a lot of new technology things that all of us are getting adopted to.
Yes.
All right. So the today's topic, what has basically been chosen is, all right, as before that, am I audible to everyone? Is it okay? My voice is okay?
Yes, sir. We are able to hear you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for the acknowledgement. So you say COVID-19 lockdown, economic turbulence, challenges, right, and opportunities. So this is basically the topic of our discussion today, what I will be taking up as such. So these are the topics that I have listed up for us to go about discussing. So I just pointed out this as the subheadings, and then we will go about taking up each of these discussion going forward. So first of all, let's just understand what global lockdown is and what is this term lockdown, how did it come about. I'm trying to make, when I went about looking at this particular topic that I wanted to go about discussing with on this topic at this particular platform, I thought that let me go about going back to history and see if there is any referral point that the world has seen such effect globally, or such a pandemic which goes about having a economic effect to the extent that we are seeing. So we will touch upon that. Then, all right, we all the time talk about, or the whole newspaper, the media, everyone talks about the supply chain shock. So we will just go about understanding what supply chain shock is. So I would be covering up supply shock, demand shock, and go about summing up to economic shock with certain illustrations so that we would be able to go about relating to what this exactly supply chain shock is all about. So what are the economic implication of this shock is what we will look at, try to understand, and then disruptions in the factors of production. And I was very keen to touch on this topic of the migrant worker and the crisis because of that's a pain that we are seeing, and we continue to see that. And why is that? And what is the theory behind the migrant workers? We will touch upon it. There is a couple of models and couple of factors which go about how migrant workers actually come into playing a role in the economy. And then we will sum up with understanding the economic challenges due to COVID-19 or the coronavirus and the opportunities of COVID-19. Then in summation, I would basically go about looking at rebooting during COVID-19. So what can we do during the period of COVID-19 all right, key pandemic periods as such. Now, let's, before I get into the understanding of this, is we are in for a long haul. There is absolutely no doubt about the fact, or one cannot go about saying that this is going to go away. All right, that is exactly the reason why we keep coming across the word, a new word which has come out, that is a new normal. All right, everybody mentions about a new normal. That means there are going to be changes or likely changes in our lifestyles going forward, even when the total lockdown is removed relating to that. A removal of lockdown doesn't necessarily mean that the virus is gone away, is what the scientists say, or the people in the health experts are basically saying. So that means we need to live with this, and hopefully by God's grace or something, that this will disappear, right, as soon as possible. So that's a point. So right, we need to understand this under the circumstances as what we stand today. So let's just get on to understanding what is a global lockdown. So first of all, a lockdown as a term is a person, right? Is a person protocol. I mean, it's a prison. Sorry, it's a prison protocol that usually prevents people, information, or cargo from leaving an area. Now, this has been what, right, what we now have put it as COVID lockdown. Say lockdown or pandemic lockdown or COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. So how do we understand the all right, lockdown or COVID-19 pandemic lockdown as such? That the term lockdown was used for actions related to mass quarantine. So, all right, many of us have also come across this term quarantine for the first time. All right, so all right, this term was there but was never in use as such. So it's a mass quarantine which we are seeing and we are experiencing. The very platform on which we are, on an online lecture platform, right, taking the lectures or listening to people from our own homes or in our private chambers, etc. All right, by without any with maintaining the social distancing. All right, so by late April, around 300 million were under lockdown in nations of Europe, while around 200 million people were under lockdown in Latin America. Over 300 million people, or about 90% of the population, were under some sort of a lockdown in the United States of America, and India in the 0.1 and the 0.2 lockdown. 103 billion people were under lockdown. We all have experienced that, and we have been a part of it as such. Okay. Now, when we talk about, when we look at this as such, that means never in the history of the world we have had something like this. That means I just went about making a reference point. So historical reference, the closest I could go was to the Great Depression. I was just thinking aloud, right, or the fact that, okay, let's look at an historical period or history. We go back to history and the Second World War. And in the Second World War, the world was on a war. But if you actually look at the Second World War, the whole of the geographies of the world were not involved in the war. War was fought, all of us know, the war was there majorly in Europe, and most of Europe was there. All right, so some parts of North Africa was involved, and a few all right, countries of Asia was involved. But if you see, North America or South America was not even there in the war zone. So they were involved in the war, but they were not in the war zone. In other words, what we are saying is, across the globe, there were, I mean, where the war was not there, those geographies had normal life in the sense of the fact of economic activity. So there was production going on, there were people doing their jobs and going on. So that means the world had not come to a standstill. So I can't go about seeing any referral where the whole world has come to a standstill, except, all right, this pandemic of COVID-19 2020 that the whole world is basically facing. Now, coming back to the economic phenomena, or the greatest of the economic fall or the world suffered was the Great Depression in the 1930s. Now, all of us know that it all started in America with the crash of the stock markets there, and then went about, people started losing jobs, unemployment basically became a major issue, and from America it spread to Europe and some parts of the world as such. Even then, we would see that It was not a total, right, there was a total economic lockdown, or there was a supply chain lockdown. When buying and selling itself coming to a standstill was not there. But today, there is, right, what we see, or what according to my understanding or the study that I have done, we are, right, mankind is looking at a phenomena which it has never seen in recorded history. Now, just to take, make a comparison, I've taken two pictures. Now, I'm talking about the Great Depression, where people were unemployed, so there were free food distributed to all those unemployed people. You can see the picture on the right to the left, and then on the right. This is the left and right I'm going to use on my side as such, okay? And then we have basically the free food distributed during the coronavirus COVID-19. So what all right, so let's basically look what was the right impact at that time. So if you see, all right, I'm just trying to go about drawing. So we're just drawing in our attention to what are we staring at. Now, if you see that the Great Depression had a peak of unemployment. So this is a statistic that I've taken, all right, from statistics body as such, which goes about 24.9% was the highest, right? That was in 1933. And then it basically went down over a period of time gradually by 1939, all right, when the Great Depression was, all right, and then the boom started moving, economy started recovering, it was 17.2. I would just like to draw your attention to the last of the bar graph relating to that. The bar is 2020. That means we hardly have been for 3 months, right? We hardly have experienced this pandemic. If you see realistically, it is 3 months and we're moving on to the 4th month as such. It is already the world, all right, the unemployment, all right, this is the US unemployment. It's already reached 32.1%, which is huge. Now, why the reference to the US? It's all right, though everything cannot be related to the US, but we understand that the implication of US economy does have a global impact, whether we like it or not, but that's the fact of the matter relating to this. So in other words, what I'm trying to say here is that we are in historical times, all right? And though we would not have liked to be in these historical times of pain, but we have no choice. We are in it already. So what is the, all right, coronavirus lockdown? So I'm putting this coronavirus lockdown. We're not, all right, I'm not going to discuss about the virus because it's all right, it's a medical issue. Not much of knowledge is there on that. So we will just stick to our domain area of the economic implications and economy and commerce in particular as such. So we say lockdown has got, I put it into two major elements. As one is danger and there is a warning. So that means, all right, we basically say a warning about a danger, but I'm saying there is a danger because that's the danger that we are facing. And I'm, all right, what the warning which I'm referring to now is the warning for the future. The danger is in the present, and then warning is for the future. This thing. So let's basically look at how the implication is, right? What is the implications of this as such? Now, though I would basically go about taking questions later on after the the session is over. But in case the questions are somebody has to put a question, you can put up the question in the chat and let me see if I can take up that question as we progress as such. Okay, so I'm just talking about supply chain shock. Just to give you a Bloomberg estimate about corona hitting the supply chain related world, except you see pockets of Africa has not been affected to large. China we have not taken, or Bloomberg is not taken because data is not there. Africa, we don't have data, right? We know the problems of Africa relating to that. It's almost covered up the whole of the other parts of the world. And you see that it has been some sort of a supply chain hit, which has taken the global, all right, global the globe as such. Okay. So if you say, and just right, just to give us a bird's eye view of what it is when the globe, all right, we were very proud of globalization and all right, and the things that globalization has done to the world. We have given lectures to our students, all right, and we wrote papers on the impacts of globalization on the positive side relating to that. The negative side of globalization, we can see that the world supply chain is stuck because the world is dependent on few countries. Now, most of the components, come from China. And what has happened is the docks, if you see here, there was no movement of those goods. It's just a bird's eye view. I'm giving you a bird's eye view of a particular dock in the Southeast Asian country where all the containers are stuck. So that's what we say is a supply chain shock. Now, when we say supply chain shock, now before I say, just for our understanding about the supply chain, all right, we basically are a top, a bottom down supply chain and a top up supply chain. Now, just to picturize a supply chain relating to that is, there is at the beginning of the supply chain is your, all right, your inputs which are coming in, or all the resources which are put into it as such. Then there is the transformation of this particular input into finished product by value addition and goes on, and ultimately becomes a finished product, and then it reaches to the consumer. So therefore, there are two components to the supply chain, the beginning and the bottom. All right, at the bottom of it is basically, the beginning is the supply and the bottom is that of the demand, that is the consumers. All of us are pretty much aware of this as such. Now, what's basically the problem, what has happened if you actually look at these two, one on the supply and the other one on the demand. The middle, where we have the raw, right, just to give you an example, we take, let's say, the beginning of an iron ore mining, the raw iron ore is basically mined, and then it from the mine, it goes to the various factories for refining. From there, it goes to other factories for production, and then it is used for various products which are used, and then we go about getting the finished good as such. That means there is a transformation of the whole process of a particular raw material or any input which comes into it as such. Now, all right, so therefore that's the supply. Now, what has happened, we have seen, all right, we just go on about saying what has happened to the supply. It got all stuck. And then what happened to the demand at the bottom relating to that? We are under lockdown, so therefore there is no demand except for the essentials relating to that. That means the whole of the middle, right, players in the supply chain are stuck along with the providers in the right of the various factors of production, and the consumers of the various factor, all right, various finished goods, etc. So that means that's exactly what we basically say is a shock. That means, what is a shock? Let's understand this now as such. So we'll look both at supply shock as well as demand shock, right? And then we will go about looking at, all right, the economic shock that we're talking about. So just drawing our attention back to the macroeconomic economics as such. I incidentally want to mention here that throughout our discussion, we will be only talking about, or our whole relation or examples is towards the macro economy only. We will not get into the micro part of it. So even when we use the word demand or supply, we are basically using the word on the macro level. So supply is nothing but, when we talk about supply, we're talking about supply of all the factors of production: land, labor, capital, enterprise. And then, all right, the demand is on the total demand of a particular economy. Just all right, to keep our focus as to when we use the word supply and demand in this particular context of our discussion as such. Okay, if you talk about supply shock, now when we talk about what is a supply shock? A supply shock is an unexpected event, right, that changes the supply of a product or a commodity, resulting in a sudden change in price. So it's an unexpected event. So what we have faced is an unexpected event. Now, supply shocks are of two types. One is a positive supply shock, and the other one is basically a negative supply shock relating to that as such. So what is a positive supply shock? It increases output, causes prices to decrease, while negative supply shock decreases output and causes prices to increase relating to that. Now, when we talk about positive supply shock, that is primarily good when the economy is growing, the GDP is growing, because there's a large scale production of goods and services, mass production of goods and services. Obviously, we know that the benefits of large scale production goes about reducing the prices. That's not what we are facing now. What we are facing now is a negative supply shock, and it decreases output, causing prices to increase. All right, so the prices will increase gradually over a period of time is what we are talking about. So that means there is a decrease of output. The effect of it is going to be there, all right, from now onwards, all right, and we will come to that part as we go into our talk as such. So they say supply shocks can be created by any unexpected event that constrains output or disrupts the supply chain, such as natural disasters or geopolitical events. So what we are in is a natural disaster. We can classify it under natural disaster only. Crude oil is a commodity that is considerably vulnerable to negative supply shocks due to its volatile Middle East location. Now, for us to understand or to have a better understanding about supply shock, what I've taken is an example of the oil shock that we have seen. So before I get into it, just for us to understand the fundamental, how the whole thing, what we to sum up our discussion, what we have stated, we have the price on one axis and the quantity on other axis. So we have the aggregate supply curve and the aggregate supply, right, and the aggregate demand curve. We are assuming here to understand that the aggregate demand remains constant, and therefore we are saying is that the aggregate supply in a negative supply chain, it reduces, the quantity reduces, output reduces from Y1 to Y2, instead, all right, resulting in an increase in price from P1 to P2. All of us are pretty much similar, all right, understand about this as such. So that means, if you relate it to this scenario, what we have seen is factories are closed down, production has come to a standstill. All right, so therefore there is no supply, so supply is reduced, but the demand is there. Now everybody, for example, now just to give you an example of, all right, about myself. Now I have a laptop, and the laptop charger has actually gone bad. I mean, it's not passing the power. I want to buy it. All right, I wanted to buy it. Now say the whole question is, there is a demand. I wanted to buy it, but where do I buy it? All the shops are closed, and deliveries of even through the e-commerce platform, all right, it is not possible for me to go about getting it, because only e-commerce platforms till recently was only going about catering to the essentials as such. So that means there is a stuck on that. So that's in simpler terms, just for our understanding about what the impact is. I've just cited this particular example. So I was talking, all right, so let's take this oil shock, what we have seen. And recently we've gone about saying that there was the oil prices went to zero and then went negative. Now that was what a very brief period of time. Now it is unprecedented in the history of oil business that it has never ever touched zero. Forget about it going negative. It did go to negative part of it as such. Now the oil, of course, is basically different types of oil. The oil price is not the Brent oil. The Brent oil is what India gets as such. This is the WTI oil, that is basically the Western Texas intermediary oil, where such a phenomena or the prices in the futures market got affected relating to that. The impact on prices and the balance has been severe, with Brent and WTI falling by more than 50% over 2 weeks in March 2020, and daily Brent tumbled to 24.9 on March 18, and all right, 51.9 from 51.9, all right, dollars a barrel on March 2nd, while the same time the WTI, that is the Western Texas intermediary, fell to $20.4 per barrel from 46.8. The volatility, basically, I just show you a particular graph here as to what happened as far as the Western Texas intermediary is concerned. Just, all right, if we look at the particular graph as such, there is a particular period of time in April, right, where it has touched zero and went to minus $10 as such. Now, all right, that is exactly what when we say negative supply chain shock. It's a classic example of this as such. Now, why did the prices fall? Just to discuss on that or to mention about it is that all the all right, basically the storage facilities what America had, because in WTI basically is not a sea-based one, it is a land-based petroleum drilling as such. So therefore, all the resources, I mean, all the storage facilities were filled, and we all know that oil cannot be spilled on the sea or dumped it, or we cannot go away. I mean, oil cannot also be dumped on land because it has got his other this thing as such. So what now? What the oil pumping could not be stopped, and it continues because it takes a long period of time. So there was a glut there, and therefore the storage facility people had to clear it. So therefore they basically gave off the petrol, asked people to come and buy, and they paid money for people to pick it up. That's what is a negative pricing of it, though it was for a very short period of time that such a phenomenon happened. That exactly is a classic example that we could cite as far as supply shock is concerned. Okay, now we look at demand shock, and when we talk about demand shock, what is demand shock? A demand shock is a sharp, sudden change in the demand for a particular goods and services. All right, a positive demand shock will cause the price of goods to skyrocket and lead to a limited supply, while a negative shock will cause prices to collapse and lead to a oversupply. Now, what we are all right, so demand shocks are also of positive nature and negative nature. So demand shocks are often temporary disruptions that market will adjust to eventually by all right incentivizing more production of supply in positive shock, and also bankruptcy of producers in case of a negative shock. A classic examples why when we talk about demand shocks is earthquakes, terrorist events, technological advances, government stimulus programs, etc. relating to that. Now, are we having a demand shock? Now, it's a very interesting situation that we are in. The world has always witnessed either one of the shock, and supply shocks don't normally happen. Right? It's a very rare scenario where we go. I mean, that is a time where the whole world, I mean, economy, if it is, and it could be an economy, not the whole world. It could be an economy which might going through that a very rare scenario where you have a supply shock scenario, and this is not very common. Now, demand shocks are quite common relating to that, all right, what we go about experiencing, because there is a whole lot of demand, and that is basically because of a huge government stimulus, or there's a technological advance, and therefore demand increases tremendously and supply is not able to match it up, and therefore there is this effect on the prices relating to that as such. All right, so demand shocks are basically sudden. What are the characteristics of an aggregate demand shock happening? We look at it, I'm looking at just the down ones as such. Economic downturn in major trading partners, unexpected tax increases or cuts on welfare benefits, financial crisis causing bank lending and credit to fall, and bigger than expected rise in unemployment rates. Now, if you see that the last two, all right, and aspects would go about being something that we would witness. In other words, all right, as I look at the whole scenario, we are having, when we say supply chain shock, that's why it's for the first time, the word supply chain shock itself is something which is quite new for as far as the economic world is concerned, because either we had a demand shock, very rarely a supply shock which is there, which has happened, okay, and what we have, but what we are witnessing in this pandemic is we have both demand and supply shock happening relating to that as such. I have a couple of participants who are who have a question, I guess, but all right, I would just like to say, please wait with me. Let me just complete this topic, then we will take up the questions as such. Okay, thank you very much for your cooperation with that extent. So I'll just basically graphically we go about referring. We are referring here aggregate supply. Aggregate supply and aggregate demand is nothing but, just to refresh the concept as such, is the sum total of the goods and services which are supplied, and aggregate demand is the sum total of the goods and services demanded in an overall economy as such. So that's why we're talking summation of all of them as such. Now here what we see is, I'm only talking about the negative, all right, aggregate demand, because we have nothing positive happening in the world. Now, demand has fallen from 81 and 82. Obviously, this is going to happen because a lot of unemployment is staring at us. All right, there are a lot of people who are going to lose their jobs. All right, and nobody can do anything about it, because that's the part of it. It's a very painful part of it. We're already seeing in the newspapers that there are companies who are laying off people, and there are factories which are shut down, and people in factories normally work on temporary basis, and that's why a large number of immigrant movement is taking place, or reverse migration is taking place because of that. So, okay, so that, all right. So therefore, we are at a particular time that we are in a great scenario which is there, that the world is seeing for the first time. So I just pause here. Is there some question? Let me look, because I see some hands risen. Right. Let me. Yeah, there is a statement, by Professor Chandrasekhar, who says masks and PPE kits are under positive supply shock. Now, it's basically, we would say that is exactly what we talk about, is a demand shock. I would rephrase it as such, because there is a whole lot of, there's not excess amount of supply, there's a shortage of supply. There is a increase of demand, but the demand is, all right, what we're having is a greater amount of demand, supply is very less part of it as such. So that is what we are basically talking, inability to do as such. That is, you're very right, Chandrasekhar, when we go about saying, that's exactly what we are saying. There's a mismatch between happening, and therefore that is also this thing. Somebody else was also say, all right, mentioned, can we say sanitizer examples? All right, you're right over there. And okay, and yeah, I think I'm very yeah. I think all of us are in, the wonderful thing is all of us are in the same page of our understanding. All right, so let's go forward, and let's look at now, having understood what is supply chain shock in a brief part of it, on the grassroots levels. We've not gone deep into it. We don't need to go deep into it right now as such. Now, what we basically let's look at what is the economic impact of COVID-19. Right. Now, is there all right? Is there an economic impact right now, or to only a few countries, or the whole of the globe? And we all agree on the fact that the whole of the globe is basically under this situation that we go about facing. Yeah. So, what is an economic shock? Now, when we say economic shocks are random, unpredictable events that have widespread impact on the economy, that are caused by things outside the scope of economic models. Random, unpredictable events that have widespread impact on the economy, that is caused by things outside the scope of economic models. Perfect fit for what the pandemic. Economic shock, random, unpredictable. Nobody ever, all right, no one in the world ever predicted this or anticipated. And its widespread impact throughout. I mean, there is absolutely, when we say the whole of India was, all right, lockdown, 1.3 billion people, we are huge. That's a very big number. Some of the countries in Europe have about 10 lakh people only, the total population relating to. So India is a very big country, and all of it. So economic shocks can be classified by economic sector that they originate from, or whether they primarily influence either the supply or demand. But in this case, what we see that it has impacted both supply and demand. Because markets are connected, the effect of shocks can move through the economy to many markets. That's why we would say it's a global phenomena, many markets, and have a major macroeconomic impact for better or worse. It is not for, I mean, all right, that's a dilemma there always. That's why in turbulence, when we talk about turbulence or disruptions, there are always, all right, negative impacts. Also, there are positive impacts. A great number of opportunities also arise from that. Okay. So let's basically look at this as, I just like to quote Cole Schwab, founder and executive chairman of World Economic Forum. He says COVID-19 is causing health emergencies, which is true, and economic disruptions, absolutely true, and that no single stakeholder can address it. Nobody has got any solution for it. I mean, if you look at the health, nobody's got a solution to it. There are no vaccines, we all know about it. There are no medicines, everything is in an experimental stage as such. And right, nobody knows how to control it. There are various experiments which are tried, including the lockdown is one such experiment. And I would say that it is to a partially has not fulfilled their purpose. So therefore, we have what is called as easing down of lockdown across the globe, because now the administrators across the globe have realized, all right, we cannot continue like this, all right, and this is what they say, new normal. It is time for us to live with this particular virus as a part of it and take all the necessary precautions as. Okay, so everyone is affected. Now, I'm just giving you a bird's eye view when we talk about economic shock. And here is what we normally talk about is the movement of goods and services in an economy as such. So we're looking at the macro and the macro picture as such. So the outer circle, what we say is a cyclic flow of goods and services and cyclic flow of money. Now, if you, I just for us to go through it, I just go and we will go through this particular thing together. I say, and now if you see the outer ring is basically the whole of the world. We could also say the whole of the country. We can substitute it as such. So here, since we are talking about a global impact, we're saying the whole of the world except India. So the Indian movement is basically inside and the global movement is outside relating to that as such. Now we'll just look at the outer car. The payments for exports and payments for import dollar will not happen basically because if you see outside the circle, international supply chains, total disruption. So no supply is there into mark. Domestic supply chains are not able to give goods. So exports have come down recently. Like today's paper, I guess, say 60% of exports have fallen. We have, all right, as such, that's the impact that we have. And so what happened? What about the rest of the 40%? We all know that we were one of the major, we had major exports as far as the pharma is concerned. All right, the medicines, what was required by the world, and we had supplied to that as such. And then investments don't flow. People remove. That's why you have seen the stock markets collapse dramatically. So investments or global movement of money is also affected relating to that as such. Now, if you move into the inner circle, so inner circle basically have businesses who are the suppliers, the households who are basically the demand relating to that. And right, there is a financial distress. People are losing their jobs. Salaries are not reaching in time. Some of them are receiving only 30% of the salary, some 40%, some no salary. And thanks to the government, that all the government employees are blessed, and let them be blessed, continue to be blessed. They still receive their salaries. So the fact of the matter is the increments are stopped and various other disruptions are there in that. So obviously what happens is consumer spending is going to go about reducing. That means people will not have the purchasing power, because we all know demand is a want backed up by purchasing power. There is a want, but there is no purchasing power. Money is not there because incomes are not there, because there is unemployment over there. Consumer spending will reduce. Obviously, going about affecting the businesses, and businesses may become bankrupt. We all hear about some of the SMEs, especially the small and medium enterprises, and are the ones who are badly affected, and the government is trying to come out with this big package of revival, etc. So we will, so I'm not touching on the package and the stimulus part of it, because that's a different topic and it's a huge topic. So we will not be covering up that discussion in this as such. Now, what happens when the businesses are getting closed or production gets closed? We all know labor layoff, reduced hours, wages and salaries gets impacted, and the household is impacted relating to that and such. But the government transfers tax and collects taxes. Now, government basically said they will refund the TDS. Now, I just have an opinion here as far as the TDS is concerned. Incidentally, TDS is not, anyway considered as a stimulus. It's our money which the government has to give, and there is no business of the government to hold on to the money. It's the question is, how can the government hold the money? Now they say that they're going to release the TDS and not everyone's, all right, that also in this thing as such. So therefore, when incomes come down, the tax returns for the governments is basically going to come down relating to that. So similarly, GSTs are almost nil. There's no GST income coming in for the government. So therefore, the government is not in a position to go about handling this scenario as such. If you see, right, if you look at this particular, right, what I say is the screen, what we have. Everything is crossed. That means there is total disruption. This is exactly what we say economic shock or economic disruptions. In summation, we can go about talking, stating this as such. Okay. Now, moving forward, they say, what is the impact of it? So, what is coronavirus economic impact? That's basically the economic impact is happening because of the lockdown. Because we have stopped everything, all right. A transaction has been stopped. You know, we all know what a transaction is: buying and selling of goods and services. Transaction itself has stopped. When you stop money supply, that is, all right, money is very important tool for economic activity. All of us know commerce rests on transfer of money from one hand to another. So that's why the GDP is going to be affected, and all right, and India is facing into some sort of a serious issue. And just looking at the Indian economy before COVID-19, were we in a decent position? No, statistics shows that we were already in some sort of an economic difficult place, all right, a difficult situation as such. So if you see here, there was slow growth. GDP growth was predicted as 5% of 2019-20, and the slowest in the last 11 years. It is stated by some of the economists that with the effect of COVID, we may be somewhere around 1% GDP. I mean, all right, I don't want to make a startled statement here, but there was some of the papers that I was reading, some of the material of the economists and opinions of the material of the economies basically stated that we might be looking at a 1% GDP growth in the coming year or so, or this particular year, or maybe 2021 or so. This is basically of the whole gist that the government is stuck in a very peculiar scenario where the money supplies got stuck. So I just don't want to get into this detail. And now we say, what about the job market? Unemployment all right, I just want to remind the audience that we're talking about in Indian economy before COVID-19 or before the pandemic. All right, these were the this was the characteristics of the Indian economy. Unemployment at a historic high amid very few jobs and many layoffs. Right, so there was this particular scenario. Crisis, all right, bound since 2016. Demonetization, GST glitches, credit crisis have taken a toll. Now we all have discussed or read about it, even might have given some inputs to all our students about the demonetization or GST and how this actually did have a negative impact. It didn't have a positive impact on the markets, or especially on the businesses as such. Okay, and weak demand. Job drought, obviously, when you have unemployment rising or employment not happening relating to that, the wages are not risen and have a dented consumer, so therefore purchasing power reduces. We're talking about from the whole of the globe as such. No, it's not on one particular, I mean, the whole of India. We're not talking about a particular segment of it as such. We're talking about the Indian economy before COVID-19. So we were not in a very stable situation before the pandemic hit us. So therefore, how long can an Indian economy sustain the total lockdown? And there is a debt. We all know the stimulus which the government is trying to give is through a debt finance. That means you take a loan, you take a loan, you take a loan. So when you say that you're going to take a loan, that means there is going to be a debt. And we all basically said, the government said, that we could postpone the EMIs. There was a monetization of EMIs for 3 days, 3 months. Now, when on the bet, all right, many people were under the impression, okay, I don't have to pay interest. It's not that interest is not going to be paid. Interest is going to be charged, and there could be the interest for the period is charged, and for non-payment the interest is charged. So therefore, the burden is still there. It's not that you are exempted or there is a tax way. I mean, there is an interest way off or a debt way off. A government up till now, I have not seen a single policy, all right, as far as waiving off of a loan or waiving off of interest for any segment as of now, till date as such. Okay, so that means that is a debt is not just a burden on and business, not just a burden, right? It is a burden on the government. It is a burden on the businesses. It is also a burden on the common man. So they say Aam Aadmi is also affected relating to that. So that means the whole of the economy would be reeling under debt for some time coming in the future as such. Supposing some of us who might have taken a housing loan, or we might have taken a car loan relating to that, and supposing the EMI is, we are not unable to pay the EMI because of the income not coming in, all right, that means we have increased our debt burden to that much extent as such. So if you see when we say the economic disruption of a summation of all the points relating to that. Now, I don't think in history, and let us hope in the future, that we will never ever go about seeing a scenario like this in India or anywhere else in the world as such. Now, you can't have highways where people are, all right, you can see one individual, the whole streets, the highly busy commercial streets are locked down, and then you have the malls closed down, and the migrant workers or the street vendors are also in serious trouble. Okay, so that's exactly what is happened. So as of now, and we still continue to be in this as such. Okay, so if there are, let me see if there are any question, because I don't want to accumulate the questions to a large extent at the end. So, what is the impact of agriculture at the point? I'll come to that part, Dr. Muniraju, at the end. We shall definitely look at it. And why downfall in international prices of oil didn't decrease its rate in India? We all know that the government makes a lot of money. In fact, we increase the prices. We know that the petrol prices were increased by the center, and tax rates in some of the states, the state governments also have increased their prices relating to that as such. That's basically a major source of income. You see that there's no GST coming in. The only GST they can come in was from petrol, which is the most essential of it as such. So therefore, that is why the government will not decrease. Right? We can be rest assured that the petrol or prices will not come down in India. And don't be surprised. I will not be surprised if it actually goes up further, because the government, you see the oil consumption or petrol consumption in India was also blocked up, isn't it? Now we see that you and me never moved out of our house. So all our cars and our two-wheelers and all those things are there. How much petrol charges, bill was paid. I didn't pay a single rupee after the lockdown as far. So, right, we all understand that as such. So therefore, I don't think it will come down. So we say, yeah. Is there a demand shock affected in any particular industry? Sarita, I think almost at this particular moment, I will come to that, all right, Dr. Sarita, please bear with me, because in the summation, I will go about saying what are the industries which are affected. And there'll be a huge number of unemployment in the coming days. We will all have this particular points discussing at the end, and we could all share our thoughts. I mean, I'm not going to stop you from expressing relating to that as such. Yeah. I think all those questions, what are there, all right, I can see various questions, all right, by Professor Rohini and Professor Mariam and all. We will, I think most of them are general, and it is, all right, we can take it up at the end, and all of you can also share your thoughts on that as such. So we will continue on that. Now, this is something which is a humanitarian one, and we all come across this, and all of us feel the pain as to why about the migration. So therefore, I thought that it is relevant because this appear, all right, the migration has got an impact as a major role in the economy as such. So that's why let's first of all understand what is human migration. Migration is basically for all living organism. I mean, living movable living things. We all know about that. Birds and animals migrate seasonally as such. Human migration is something which we would, which we are this thing. So let's understand. Migration is a movement by people from one place to another with the intention of settling temporarily or permanently in a new location. It could be external. When it's external, we say immigration. And we all know that India is a major exporter of human resources. Right? We give a lot. I mean, there's a huge export of human resources, and particularly if you see to the Middle East and the Southeast Asian countries, and that is normally supplying of the semi-skilled and unskilled labor goes to these sort of an economies as such. The skilled labor go to Europe, America, to a large extent. We have seen this movement happening. So immigration, both internally, the internal ones are the people who are moving from the villages or small towns to urban areas. That's exactly what we call it as urbanization. And they go about providing for the workforce in the skilled, unskilled, and the semi-skilled. I mean, not on the skills category, more on the semi-skilled and the skilled, I mean, the unskilled category. Now, just to give a passing reference as an example is the construction labor. So you have the skilled, the semi-skilled labor, the maestri or the mason who does that, and then you have the labor who are the unskilled labor as such. So therefore, migration is something very important across the globe. This is not something which is in India. We have movement across the globe happening as such. Now, there are two types of migrations which happen. One is forced migration, human migration flows which movers have no choice but to relocate, temporary or permanent. All right, this is normally what we say is the refugees are a classic example. You would see that these are people who are forced out of their places. We see that, so that could be a classic example of it. Or there is a huge natural disaster, earthquakes, etc. They have nothing else but to move out of it. That's why it's either temporary or permanent. Then we have voluntary migration. This is primarily happening. Human migration flows which the movers respond to perceived opportunities and not forced. These are perceived opportunities. That means people now come. So why is that? A lot of people come to Bangalore. Now we have seen that the mass exodus or reverse migration of people from Bihar, UP, Odisha, Northeast. All right, all of these people have come to Bangalore because they see that this and to Karnataka, there's a lot of opportunity. Mumbai and Chennai. All right, so you have these pockets where people moved in for better opportunities, is what we say, in search of better quality of life, and it is either temporary or permanent as such. Now, normally temporary is for the unskilled labor, right? So they are either agricultural workers, and they have somebody taking care of the agriculture in the village, and they send their children, or the young people come down and work in the city to give financial support to it. We all are a witness to this particular, and we understand it better. Now, what causes migration is what is important for us. There are, all right, two classification of, excuse me. Yeah, sorry. There are two factors. One is the push factors. The other one is the pull factors as such. So let's look at the push and the pull factors right, briefly for our understanding of the migrations as such. Yeah. Now, if you look at the push factors, why is that they are pushed out? Few services are there, lack of job opportunities, unhappy life, poor transport links, natural disasters, wars, shortage of food. Now, if you actually look in India, the push factors are from the poorer states or states which are or places which are having not much of a job opportunities, like a few services, lack of job opportunities, unhappy life is, and poor transport links. These are some of the reasons why we had this nationwide migration happening. Then there are pull factors. These are both. I mean, in India, we have both the push and pull factors working on as such. So what are the pull factors? Access to services, better job opportunities. Now, we all know that, all right, various students in Karnataka, all right, who are in the various towns like Kolar, people look at Bangalore, or people from Davangere look at Bangalore, people from Hubli look at, I'm talking about our own student community. They all want to come to Bangalore or closer to Mysore, etc., where there are much more better job opportunities, more entertainment facilities, better transport links, improved living conditions is one other factor, hope for a better way of life, and family links, what is also there. Now, the family links part of it is there's a youngster, he gets married, and therefore his wife who's there in the village also joins. That's how the male is working in a factory or somebody else. The wife is basically the housemaid or doing housekeeping services. All right, we are pretty familiar with this as such. We understand what the push and the pull factors of migration are. I say, now the whole question is, today, now we have seen migration happening before the pandemic. Now, what the pandemic has caused is a reverse migration. Now, this is something which is a very rare phenomena. It is not something which happens very often. So what exactly is reverse migration? Let's look at it. Now, before I get into reverse migration, so I just, went into a certain amount of understanding of human behavior. And I classified that basic human security is primarily, there are two, though there may, I've just classified them into two. One is the financial security, which one seeks for, and the one is the social security as such. Now, financial security is obviously the incomes that we are looking at to support our family. Social security is your family, your relatives, and your near and dear ones who are there as such. Now, migration is a human activity in search of financial security. We all agree about it. Why should a person from a village or a small town come down to an urban state or come down to any of these states? They obviously come for a better financial security relating to that as such. Now, why this, what happened? Now, let's understand why this reverse migration, why lakhs and lakhs of people are moved out, moving, and will continue to move. And some of them are still on the roads of the highway yet to reach their village. And some are waiting for the train or bus. Now, right, we all are aware of it. Now, let's take a simple example. Here is a youngster who comes from a village and he leaves his family behind. All right, he's left his parents who are very loving and taken care of him and given him some sort of an education or something. And he says, let me go. They also ask him to go, come down to the city, come down to Bangalore and do some electrical work or something. He might have done an IIT, joins a factory. He's got everyone there. Now, this chap has been working. He works hard. He works shift 1. He's ready to work for shift 2. The place he lives is he doesn't mind the place where he's living at. And we all know that some of the labor lives in sheds, temporary sheds, which are there under very, very difficult conditions, much more difficult conditions than what they have in the village. But they are ready to sacrifice for the financial income that they're getting. Now, what has the pandemic done? The pandemic has taken away the financial security. They have lost the job. Now, these are daily wage workers. They have not been receiving the money as such. Now, when you don't receive the money, all right, you are obviously going to go about spending from your reserves. And food is being served, so that we all make a And some of us may have been involved in social service, providing food for them, and the government agencies trying to provide. We all know lakhs and lakhs of people are there. It reaches some people, it doesn't reach some people. Mind you, these are self-respected human beings. They are not beggars. They work hard for their food. Now, by giving them only food, it's not sufficient for them. It's not just enough, right? Any food they give, it's all right. They're hungry. They would go about taking it because of this. But are they going to beg? No, they're not going to beg. Now, just take a simple scenario. Let's relate this to us on the financial security or social security. Now, let us say our child is in a hostel somewhere, studying his engineering or something, which I am sure some of the professors can relate to this example. And he's staying, let us say, my son is studying in some university, engineering college, somewhere outside Bangalore. Now, when this has started, and then what is my first reaction as a father? First reaction of a father is, pack your bags, come home. I'm not even bothered whether he's completing his engineering, etc. relating to that. Now, let us assume the other way around. I have a son who's basically working in Mysore or something relating to that, and that fellow was working in a factory and he loses his job. What do I, as a parent, say? Immediately, I say, all right, close everything, forget it. You come, leave your job, this, that, and all. Whatever we have, we will manage and we will go about living. I want to say. Now, is the human behavior of a poor man different from a human behavior of a rich man or a person who's economically better? No, we are all the same human being. These chaps, basically, we have seen and read in the newspapers and we have seen in the media, they all have made statements where I say that, sir, I don't want to die due to COVID. I will go and die in my village. It doesn't matter relating to that. Somebody has been about stating, sir, parvailla nanu urge hogtini, alleno vyavasaya madkondu irtini nanu, right, jeevana martini. Idu right, so much of pain relating to that as such. When the government try to go about doing various, the government has got to take some steps on his own. So therefore, here it's basically there's always a debate which will go on between economics and humanitarian grounds. Now, first they said you cannot go, they didn't allow the buses, then they went about allowing the buses. First they said no trains, then they said trains, then they started charging. All right, the idea of the government strategy is primarily to go about retaining them. Right? Can they retain? Can you retain a human being who's basically hurt? All his dreams have been shattered. His financial security has been taken away. Only thing he falls for is social security. That is his family. So that is why this painful thing, people have walked 400 kilometers, 500 kilometers, 900 kilometers. Yesterday, I was basically watching a group of auto drivers basically set off from Mumbai to UP and Bihar. So because there is no this thing, so they with their family went out. We're talking about 1,000+ kilometers of journey relating to that. So this is what exactly is the reason why the reverse immigration is taking place, and it will continue to take, is what my assessment is, because we have taken away the system has taken away the financial security. Right, as a human being, they fall back on a social security, which is there only in their villages as such. Okay, so if you look at this, what we have talked about of the reverse migration as such, right, the migrant crisis, 5 lakh to 6 lakh number of workers who walked foot to villages under lockdown. These are statistics which are basically center's submission to the Supreme Court. Now, we all know that the government basically will not give the holistic picture, because we will not be in a position to collect the data. But when the government itself says 5 to 6 lakhs, just imagine how many more lakhs are moving as such. There are 8.4 million, just to refresh, a million is 10 lakhs as such. We're talking about 84 lakhs who are basically given food and by government and NGOs, right? So, and almost about 10 lakh people, 100 lakh people, persons, so relief camps and shelter houses. And actually, if you look at the shelter homes which are provided, Kerala stands out on this. 70% of the total shelter houses, of the 22,567, primarily being by the Kerala government as such. And that means the rest of the governments have actually not provided shelter home at all to that extent as such. So this is something which is a humanitarian crisis. Now, is this something which is there happening in India? I just like to draw draw the attention. In this platform of discussion, I was watching the Al Jazeera, right channel, the international channel, which were so they were basically shown going. So that means this is something which is a problem of all developing economies and the economies which are basically depend on the migrant labor for their growth as such. Okay. So this is in right. I just gone about making a comparison of the reverse migration. If you see, I've taken the Great Depression, the reverse migration 1947 in the parties, during the partition. And if you look at the reverse migration 2020, I don't see it much different. You have people, on top of the bus as such. And these are people who, you see, the thing is what we need to understand the pain. Here are people who don't have water. This is, we are in the peak of summer. These people are walking on the roads. You see that shocks. I've gone to the extent of thinking, now I say these people are working in summer, do they have the footwear? Now, even if they have a very weak footwear to walk that distance, there are no shops where they can buy footwear. And it's very painful. I just don't want to go into it because I just get a little bit more emotional because of the pain. All of us feel this particular pain as such. And the question is, right, we have no evacuation plan for India. Government, I'm sorry to make the statement as such. There was no sort of a plan for the migrant worker. First, they said, we will have the trades. And then they said social distancing. As the number increased relating to that, then they say we will allot the middle berth. Then now look at this thing over there. Now they say all trains are going to be AC and you have to pay for it. Now, you just imagine the pain, I am a labor, I'm a person who want to move from Mumbai or let's say from Bangalore and I want to go to Lucknow, my UP, and from there I will go over there. And I have 4 people, I have myself and then my wife is there, 2 children are there. I have to buy an AC ticket and each AC ticket would cost, a normal price could cost anywhere between 1,500 to 1,800. Where will this person get the money from? How will he get this? Into 4, we are talking about 1,800 into 4 plus the food charges which are there as such. And now the government of Karnataka say compulsory quarantine. Now here are people who are coming into this thing, want to go to their house. You say you make 14 days compulsory paid quarantine. I'm not discussing. The government has got its own this thing. I don't want to get into that sort of a thing. And just talking. The reason why I'm mentioning this is we are in for the future pain. And that's my whole concept as such. This pain is not going to go away very fast. Now, just to go about saying, what is the aggregate demand, how the COVID-19 pandemic affects the consumption of an aggregate demand. Because we are saying about rebooting the economy, right? So that means demand should increase. Even if I'm a seller, people have to buy. So you say, what is that thing? What would be the effect on the demand or the aggregate demand? It will be a declining consumption, obviously, because of lockdown, poor expectation of future income. People will not spend money, and there is erosion of wealth of the prices. The value of assets will come down. So that's why there is an arrow down. Declining investment, companies will close down. Small firms will close. Small industries will close. Small retailers and traders will close. Because of the pandemic. There would be government expenditure. This is the only positive thing. Increase of the monetary fund. We have seen crores, lakhs of crores of rupees basically stated as packages. So there would be an increase in government spending. That's a positive. Or I don't know when the money will reach into the hands for consumption. How will it affect demand? That's a big question mark, because the policies don't give a direction on that particular area as such. Then there is a decline in the net exports. We all know about the decline part of it. We already discussed about it. Now, I've taken this beautiful analysis from the Harvard Business Review on the economic impact or the supply side threats from COVID-19. So they use the BCG model, right? The Boston Consultancy Group model, the four-window model, which we as professors of commerce are pretty familiar. So here are the things. So we have these two, on the left side of the axis, we have the two variables of capital problems and liquidity problems. These are business related problems as far as investment side is concerned. Then we have the financial system shock. Overall, when we look at the macro, we're talking about financial system shock and the real economy freeze related to that. Now, if you look at, I'm taking the extreme right, I'm going into the real economy first, the freeze part of it as such. Now, if you see liquidity, where, liquidity problems is healthy households and companies face severe cash flow problems, hampering investments. Now, let's look at a picture of a person who has got, had about 50,000 in his bank account, and suddenly he gets a notice, email from his company that he has lost his job. Now he has to pay his rent. So his rent is 15,000 or 80, let's say, and then he has to pay his rent, and then he has to look for a job. Now I can't even look for the job until the whole total lockdown is open. I don't know whether I'm going to get the job or not. And then now I'm spending off all the money. What happens now? Will I spend the money on all the things I want? No, I will be trying to curtail my spending. So therefore, there's going to be liquidity, my cash inflows. What I'm saying here is, when you don't have a cash inflow and there's a cash outflow happening only, as commerce professors, we do understand, that means there is no revenue, only expenditure. We come to a point where you say, no, zero balance, then we go into bankruptcy. Okay. This is not just for the household. It applies to the companies also, right? Now, somebody was asking the question, which is the industry which is going to affect? The biggest industry which is going to get affected for a long period of time is travel and tourism. Now, travel tourism is going to be hit in a big time globally. People will not go on a holiday. Two reasons. One is risk, they will not go in. Second is they don't have money, that extra money go in for holiday. Even if they have that extra money, they would defer going it over, that would be a deferred demand. So therefore, that industry would have a huge cash flow. They already are shut down. They will not, even after they open, they will not go about having any cash inflows. So when there are fixed expenses, hotels have a huge fixed expenditure as operations are concerned. The variable expenses are very less, but the fixed expenditure is very huge over there. Now those businesses will close down. So that's why I say we'll have huge liquidity problems and will be affected. Now, if you look at the demand, as such, we come to financial system shock. Liquidity problems will hamper credit intermediaries and investments. That's why the government came up saying with this huge package, the first of the release of package by the Honorable Finance Minister, Mrs. Sitharaman, was towards the NBFCs. So that they have liquidity problems. They will not be able to lend. So therefore, they came out with this particular package in order to see that there's a financial system continues to have start speaking up, and it's so that the liquidity can be increased. Then you have the capital problems, such as credit channels, damaging capital formation, and ultimately growth as such. Now you say it is definitely, how are you going to raise the capital? Now you say, how many entrepreneurs you think, though the government says we're going to give you loans, concessional loans, that's what the package goes about saying. How many entrepreneurs would go about thinking of taking a loan under this scenario? the Great Depression is a classic referral point where the businessmen, took a step back because they didn't want to take the risk because they don't know how the future is. So even though there was credit available, it was not, entrepreneurs never came forward during that particular period of time. That's why the government had to take a role, and the government went into for their spending. And capitalism after the Great Depression took a new shape of capitalism where social and capital government's role increased relating to that. All of us, some of the professors might be aware of this part of it as such. So in summation, if you actually look at the industry, the way I will look at a canvas here. I put up a canvas which talk about certain industries, not all the industries which have been affected. We know that there's been no retail, 70% has fallen, and whatever the retails which were there was only for the essentials. Only pharma and food retail was functioning during the lockdown as such. And hospitality and tourism, total shock. That means it is a standstill business. There are no business happening. That is why the government said compulsory quarantine. You have to stay in a hotel, 5-star, 3-star, and budget hotel. So the hotels will get some revenue from which they will charge GST, and then the government will get some GST revenue incomes. That's the strategy. All right. As an economist, we need to understand that. All right. That's why I said there's always a contradiction under these circumstances on a humanitarian ground and the economic ground. Going forward, real estate, we all know that the migrant workers play a crucial role. This sector is going to be hospitality, tourism, and real estate is going to take a big time hit for some period to come. All right. E-commerce would be a thing is that they were e-commerce also. We think that e-commerce they went on fine. No, e-commerce did not go on fine. E-commerce only gave essentials and food security, food services, and that too they were not able to function because of the high-handedness of the police and the whole bureaucratic system of getting the passes and all. It was in fact virtually a standstill. That is why in the recent this thing as such, the aggregator, the taxi aggregator, Uber has already announced that it is closing. About 3,000 or 4,000 people are going to, they have laid off relating. These are things which are going to happen. There's no, there is absolutely no doubt about it as such. Now, energy, we know that power and oil, when we talk about power, power consumption also come down. See, power from the household is not a huge consumption. When you have the huge consumption, we all know is from the industry and from business. They were all shut down, so there was no consumption of oil. Nor so the the energy sector has taken a big hit. It's not that they are they are functioning well. Don't think about the power that we are using at our home is making them any better. It absolutely doesn't go about creating any sort of a revenue for the companies nor for the government. So that's basically thing. Now, if you look at the FMCG sector, it's been affected because of the supply chain problems. Retail industry has been affected. When we talk about retail, other than the consumption and the necessaries, and that is, including the pharma and the medicines, all other retail industries have taken a hit. Aviation is a big hit. We all know. Banking and also has taken a hit. There are no transactions happening. So we can just go about. Now we talk about IT. Now you think IT is functioning. All these people are basically working from home and all. Now, my gut feeling is that these small IT companies have already closed down. They have been closing down. Been a lot of unemployment. Now, all of us think that the IT is functioning. What is the IT functioning? We're talking about a Wipro functioning or an Infosys functioning or TCS functioning. These are, this is not the IT industry. The IT industry constitutes of many small industries who give various support services. Now, these big companies actually will not remove any workers because their goodwill will get affected. So they have other strategies. Now, they already stated that we are not going to increase the salaries. They said no more increments, and then therefore they are saying certain other privileges will be taken off, etc. after 3 months or 4 months, if things are not going to go up, you will see that these big companies will also start laying off. So we are in a certain amount of trouble going forward. That's the challenges that we have. Are there any opportunities? Now, to be honest, I mean, from my personal perspective relating to that, always a turbulence gives rise to an opportunity as such. But is the opportunity so big that it is going to go about making we're going to reach the pre-COVID times? No, right? It is not possible. There are opportunities in certain sectors which have grown phenomenally. One of the greatest sector which has taken a big turnaround is digital. Right now, for example, right now, right, we are using digital platform to go about giving the lecture. Online classes, we talk about online seminars, we are talking about a company like Zoom is making money as such. Now, recently, there was this thing among the top 5 IT revenue companies, Netflix has come into the 4th place. Can you imagine? Obviously, we can imagine relating to that. Most of us have Netflix. Now we are subscribers to Netflix. During the lockdown, we have the number of people subscribing for Netflix has increased. For Amazon Prime is increased. Now we could see also related to why Facebook has invested such a huge amount. Why Reliance Jio has gone into a collaboration or a joint investment with Facebook. It's a win-win for both of them. I don't want to get into the details because it's a huge discussion. It'll take a lot of time. I think I'm already into a lot more time, and I would like to finish and take some questions, and we could do a discussion. But to sum up as such, then we have 4 other companies who came out with 5,000 crores, 10,000 crores, 12,000 crores. This is big money coming in. And what is that? Because the industry in businesses or commerce, in other words, are going to be digitized. The digital platform or the digital industry, all right, is the one which is going to go about having a huge amount of growth. Now, I'm just taking a clue as to opportunity for India, because we were talking about the pan-India scenario as such. We talked about the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji had basically talked about self-reliance, make in India, boost, etc. relating to that. So there are a lot of opportunities because the globe has now become a little bit more negative towards China. So it throws up a lot of opportunities for us to create our own, develop components, manufacture, though, right, we become manufacturer of components rather than assemblers. All right, encourage exports, manufacturing for global markets, etc. relating to that. The specifics of it is too early because we don't really know how the industry, and once the lockdown is open, then only we will go about knowing what is the impact, and do we really, what are the industries which are really going to go about doing it. But the fact, or one thing is for sure, that one great opportunity which goes about opening is urbanization. We will have reverse urbanization. The rural areas or the agricultural sector or the agricultural beds are the ones who have a huge amount of opportunities, right? Now, I or using this particular platform would encourage all our professors and our fraternities, especially coming from some of the rural background colleges and small towns, etc., to encourage students to look at their own geography, because coming to Bangalore is not going to go about create them opportunities. I just give you a simple example. Marketing of agricultural product is the biggest reforms that we are going to undertake, and we have already seen now where the agricultural marketing. We say the APMC has been amended over there. Now a farmer can go about doing a direct marketing. Now, right now, that means what? A direct marketing opens up channels for a new entrepreneurs to come into it as such, new suppliers to come in. You can become an aggregator model can come in relating to that. Cooperative farming can be experimented, though we know that it has failed as such, but a failure at one particular period of time can actually be a success in the current periods of time. Somebody asked about agricultural sector. So in the earlier point relating to that. So we have a huge amount of opportunities which are there. All right. All right. Is there that we don't have competition because people may shift over because of the negative sentiment on China? No, we have. All right. Vietnam, Cambodia, all right, Indonesia, Malaysia. Now, these are highly competitive because they also have, all right, very smart labor, as well as the policies of the government are very encouraging. And all right, they can be good competitors for us as such. As far as IT is concerned, all right, you see that there is one small country which actually is a very smart and a revolutionized country, and one of the most advanced countries, that is Israel. Now, Israel is among the most innovative countries in the world. Their workforce is highly skilled, and they are always been a huge competition for Indian IT businesses. Right? I have been preview to this in my analysis sometime earlier relating to that. They also, though, I mean, India has one advantage on the global platform, especially with the interaction with the Western country, talking about our English language capabilities, etc. Israel also is like India. Everybody over there speaks English as such. So we have, it's not that, all right, we sit on a very comfortable position as such. We have competition in the global field relay. So there are opportunities. It's not that there are not opportunities, but then it has to be understood in a in the right perspective, and it will take some time, right? At least some 6 months or 7 months before we really get a hold of what are the industries where we can see the opportunities as such. But in brief, these new opportunities are always going to come up as such. Now, my concluding part is rebooting during COVID-19. I'm saying during COVID-19, there is no post-COVID-19. Because why I'm talking COVID-19 is a virus, all right? So the virus is not going to go away. So we're not, all right? So therefore we say post-lockdown we can use, but we can't say post-COVID-19, all right? Because we are during COVID-19, after the lockdown period, or during the continued lockdown period, we still have to look at, right, what the government will take on 17th, which is very short relating to that. However, I say during this particular period, I go about saying, so wake me up when it's all over. So say, I have a model which I've taken over there. So this is a fantastic model. So I thought we should all be purview to it as such. How do I want to be during COVID-19? All right. And again, emphasizing during COVID-19, present and the future. So there is one fear zone. So once the lockdown is open, I know some of you professors, right, in the government have been asked to report to your job, and some of you face various difficulties. And I know of professors who stay in Bangalore, go towards some rural this thing like a little far, and then right, some rural colleges in the rural Bangalore area, they use the public transport, now find themselves difficult. I know I have heard about some of the non-teaching staff walking because there is no public transport. All right. So, and there is this fear. So therefore, the fear zone is there. That means, should I go out? What are the precautions? Can I eat this food? All right, the spread of the virus. So that fear we are going to go about having. All right, this is not going away. That's why it's very darkly placed relating to that as such. So so what we are taking about is, I need to be careful, is what I would say, not spend much time. So go about looking forward for this, follow the information, follow this. But at the same time, you have lots of forward messages which are coming. There are some messages which are informative, some are misleading, some are scaring, some are not true. So this is a world of just a forward, and all of us do, all right, are a victim to it as such. But it's all very, all right, it's something that we have to become very cautious and judicious in looking at it. So I'm not that. So that fear zone we are already experiencing, we are not spent. So I come to the learning zone. Right. So what is this learning? Now we say, first of all, most importantly is behavior. Now, if you see that we have been locked in our houses, we are not being used to it. But if you look at our daily routines and behavior pattern, it has changed. There have been high emotions. It is natural, right? So we did have some emotions which are high, running high in the house, which were normally not there, etc. So that means this is something which we are facing it, right? This is a COVID-19 effect on it. So the spread of emotions would be high relating to that. There, right, there will be consumption. There is basically there. But the plus point relating to this is there is a lot of information which is available. We are reading a lot. If you see, you read a lot now. You want to know what a virus is, what is a corona, how does it come, what is a vaccine, how a vaccine is prepared, what is the testing, what are process. If you look at on the healthcare, a part of it. Then you're looking at the economy. We are talking about supply chain shocks. We are talking about then the why prices are going down, why prices are going up, immigration. So there's a lot of information, but it's all about the question is we can learn, right? We can go about learning. There's a lot of learning and there are a lot of technical learning. I'm just giving you one example to the professors here. Okay. Incidentally, can I have do I have a couple of minutes more?
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah. I was reading an article, I mean, a newspaper article, a report given by Deloitte. And in, I think, it was given by Deloitte. Now they talked about because Deloitte is also one of India's largest auditor, and they have a lot of partners who do a lot of auditing as such. I mean, this is accounting professors would also enjoy this part of what I'm talking about as such. Now they say that there is a loss. Now, obviously, the lockdown has got a loss. Businesses have incurred a loss. Now, the loss is a revenue item. So, therefore, it is going to go about sitting in the profit and loss account. And from the profit and loss account, it'll go and sit in the balance sheet and it'll sit on the liability side. Once it sits on the liability side, now what happens is your balance sheet is upset. Right? So, your liabilities are showing high and your asset values are not matching up. So, the value of the firm comes down. Right? We all understand this. Now, what they basically said is, now, right now, therefore, once the balance sheets are affected, the businesses, especially on getting finances from banks or working capital, are going to be affected. So they said they came out with a suggestion stating that the government should permit, or the accounting practices should permit, especially the IT should permit, for this to be capitalized, and then basically go about amortizing it and writing it off over a period of time. We know that once it is capitalized, it will come on the asset side. It's something like preliminary expenses that we have capitalized, it comes on the asset side. So therefore, the balance sheet looks very beautiful. And therefore, what happens is that the beautiful in the sense the balance sheet looks healthy, because this is something which was an unexpected one, and it's not truly reflecting what the business financials look like. So therefore, it's unfair for us to go about showing this huge revenue loss because of something which was uncontrollable, and declare this company or a firm as not a financially viable one. So therefore, they came out with this particular suggestion, and looked for me, I was very impressed. Yeah, this looks very fantastic, and it makes more sense because companies have to have a healthy balance sheet. Only then they can go about raising capital, which is very essential the post-lockdown period. Then in the last one caught my interest over there. Say, now for this to be done, the government, the financial institutions or the banks, the lending financial institutions, can take an external agencies to do a credit rating. Wow, I say, this is fantastic. Who's going to do the credit rating now? Obviously, these auditors and these financial institutions, the experts or financial consultants like Deloitte, etc., relating to that. So you say, how do I make business? How am I going to convert this pandemic and this particular scenario into an opportunity? Now, the classic learning that I've understood about this is, Unless you have to throw, now if you have to, all right, sorry for using this parlance, but if I have to call my dog, the easiest way of calling my dog is throw a biscuit. Now, once I throw a biscuit, he's going to come towards me. Once he comes towards me, I catch him and I can do whatever I want to relate to that. So therefore, I've given a solution. So opportunities, how to capitalize opportunities. I've given a solution, which is very right. There's no second thought of it. But since I've given a solution, I'm not going to go about giving a solution free. And this solution, what am I going to get a leverage out of it? How am I going to leverage it out of me? He says, all right, all these institutions have to get themselves credit rated by an independent agency, right? So that means it opens up a new business line out of the pandemic. Now, this business line is arising out of the pandemic. I'm just basically sharing this. Now, why I've shared this is primarily say there's a lot of material, a lot of things for academicians, for us. Some new startling things are coming out, and we are able to go about reading it, follow it up as such, spend a little bit more and evaluate the information spreading around and recognize it relating to that. It's a fantastic learning zone relating to that. Obviously, it will result in a growth, right? Growth zone. And this particular model, I'm relating it only to the right, to us academicians and professors as such. We can relate the same model to anything. So yesterday I was giving a lecture to the students in for the Davangere University. I referred it to the students as such. Now we can also replicate it to any this thing as such. Obviously, growth is going to happen. New thinking, new thoughts, new ideas, new talents, new skills are going to come out of this as such. We are actually living in a present, and the focus is on the future. I'm repeating, we are living in the present, focus is on the future. We are looking forward to what the government for decision is going to be there on 17th. We are looking forward for the government, what sort of packages the government is going to go about giving. We are looking forward for, all right, when our classes are going to take place. We are looking forward for when we are going to have the examination, how we will go about having admissions. Now, private institutions, all right, have problems. Now, they are all worried about their cash flows. Now, all right, if they don't have admissions, fees are not coming. I can understand the pain, because as an administrator, I do understand. Students don't pay the fees, and we all know that the last stretch of the fees comes before the examination. We give, all right, they have to get a no due certificate. There is a amount which is still due, and that time there's going to be a cash inflow. All that has been deferred, and their private institution management are facing a cash crunch, and then we have to basically, and salaries have not been paid. 30% salaries, 50% salaries, no salaries. A scenario, some of them have removed some of these people. We know these are pain. I mean, it's right and wrong is not what it is. This is the reality that we are in. So the reality is quite painful as far on the human grounds relating to that. But the nature basically talks about the fact as to right of survival of the fittest. So I would like to end my lecture. So thank you very much. Right. So namaste, Corona. Right. So please avoid shaking hands, avoid physical contact, to be safe. You right, maintain social distancing. See that you wash your hands properly, and then be safe and to avoid it as such. Namaskar, and thank you very much. So we can, all right.